Dear friends, you're welcome to this other edition of Beyond Africa. In this edition of Beyond Africa, we are looking at technology. We want to understand how technology can contribute to the development of the continent, how technology can influence individual lives, and how technology can support businesses. In this edition, we are receiving a guest who's involved in developing systems, in developing software that is necessary and that he is using to build the various platforms on which we are working. There's a big surprise because you're going to enjoy to learn one thing that he is using that may be connecting us and from which you are benefiting. In this same edition, he's going to run us through the IT career path, and he's going to give us tips on what is necessary if you want to change your career, if you want to take a career in the IT field, and the challenges of his daily routine. I think this is going to be an engaging conversation, a conversation where you will learn more, especially from somebody who sits in front of his computer, works in front of his computer every day, and is ready to share with you what he has learned. When I come back, I'll introduce my guest to you. You are welcome. Let me introduce to you my guest, who is Charles Ponti. Charles, you're welcome to the program today.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's really, how would I put it? I'm excited to have you on the program today because we started talking on different things. And then at the end of the day, we found ourselves talking on this program. And I told you my program is meant particularly for young Africans, especially those who are back in Africa, who are looking at exploring the world. Even though we have another concept we call From Africa to the World and Back to Africa, that concept, it's aimed at helping or at shining the spotlight on Africans who are doing something to advance the continent. And in this wise, I don't know why we shouldn't consider you as somebody who is doing something to advance the continent, because what you are doing cuts across, it cuts across the universe, it cuts across the world. And I'll just let you introduce yourself, but let me let the audience know that you are a software engineer and you love sharing your skills, you love sharing your experiences, and you love podcasting. Over to you, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Charles. So yeah, I've been in technology for very, very long time. I don't want to date myself. I'm an old man at this point in the technology sphere. But yeah, I've worked in many different industries in tech. I started in my late 20s. I was working in a completely different field. Like I went to school for economics and finance. And then I did that for a while. I worked for JP Morgan and Citibank, and I didn't really like that. So I decided, let me try this technology thing out. And I worked in several startups in Europe, in many different fields, advertising, finance, more like data center, back of the office type stuff that customers never see. And then I found my way to StreamYard during the pandemic. And I've been working on that product for about 3 years now, or at least I've been with the company for about 3 years. And like during my time there, we found that people starting in a content creation career, that they struggle to kind of get started. And a big part of that is, so I live in LA. And a lot of people move to LA because there are other actors and other people in the entertainment industry here. So it's a lot easier to start your career in entertainment if you're around other people who are also in entertainment. You get a lot of inspiration and connections, and your career is much more likely to grow. So it's like, well, what if we could do that for content creators? We could create a community so that people can connect with each other and they can find people that are in the same field or talking about the same things. And then they can just work together. And that's really the best way to grow. So that's how we made Collab. And it's been 2 years about now that the product has been, well, no, it's been 2 years since we've been working on it. But the product has been out publicly for about a year now.
Okay, let's kind of decode this. Most often people believe to work in IT, you must have been a computer engineer, you must have been a guru at math and physics, you must have studied computer engineering at the university. This doesn't sound to like your story. You studied economics?
Yeah.
Yeah, my days back when I was in the university in Africa, in Cameroon, those who studied economics, accounting, they saw themselves as the best because the employment market at the time needed more economists. And I think it is the story today. More economists, more accountants, more marketers. But you moved away from economics, accounting, marketing into software development. And you worked with JP Morgan and the Citibank. These are the world's largest banks. They have a lot of money. They would pay a lot of money, but you are moving away from accounting, you're moving away from economics, you're moving away from marketing into IT. What is amiss here? What are we not getting here?
So there's a couple of things. I think one is to work in technology. To work in engineering, you do need to know how to engineer. You do need to know how to write software. But writing software is not that hard. And a lot of engineers are going to be like, no, don't say that. It's very difficult. Writing software is not very difficult. It's like learning a language. If you put time, because that's all software is. Software is a language. There's many languages that we use to communicate ideas to the computer, and for the computer to understand those ideas and to execute on the ideas that we have conveyed to the computer. Just like I would use English to tell, a gardener, this is how I want my garden. I'm just using a particular language. So you can learn engineering. It's not very difficult. And that's always been my perspective. I don't think there's anything in the world that is all that hard. If you just put time into it, you can figure out how to do it. Changing from economics and finance into software wasn't that big of a change. I think there is a kind of classical sense of what a software engineer is, and that is someone who is just extremely technology focused. And there are many areas of technology that kind of are that. Like if you look more on like the pure machine learning side and like backup office type work, it is a bit more purely technical. But for the most part, building technology is building products. You're not just like building some random thing that no one's ever going to see and no one's ever going to use. At some point, you're going to have to build something that some other person is going to have to use. And in that case, you're building a product. And if you're building a product, that's just business. And so my background in understanding economics and finance has helped me build better products, because I find
you're putting two things here: the business objective at the background, and then the product you want to put out there. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, exactly. You'll find with a lot of engineers, or not even just engineers, I would say people who want to start a business in general. If they don't come from a kind of pure business background where they studied business, or they studied more so studying economics and studying finance, something more on the kind of pure technical, tactical part of running a business, they tend to build things no one wants. Many engineers build things that no one wants. It's okay, that's a very interesting idea, but this is useless. You're not going to be able to productize this. And you see that across even outside of engineering. A lot of people come up with a business idea, or they want to start a restaurant or something, but they don't understand business, but they just have the idea and they start it and it goes nowhere. So I think it's very good to understand business, understand the entire purpose of why humans build things for other humans and what works and what doesn't, and then use that education with whatever else you decide to do.
Yeah, so this is actually telling me that successful businesses actually solve a problem. They identify a problem and try to solve it. They don't just work. They don't build something because they are capable of building it. Can you elaborate on that more? So those of us who are not into the tech field, the viewers may be able to find value in maybe moving into the tech field if they want to.
Right. Yeah. So, like, I would say a lot of people, like, everyone has ideas. Like, we all have to engage in technology in one way or another. Either like you use a smartphone or the internet, you use some services that you don't like, and you come up with ideas. Or there's some area of your life that's kind of frustrating, and you're like, oh, if I had X solution, this would help me in some way. So we all come up with these ideas. Like, I have lists and lists on my computer of different product ideas that I've come up with. Most of those are completely useless, really. Like, I could build them and maybe they would serve a bit of a purpose in a very small way. But that's a big difference between building something that could be a product. A product is something that solves a problem well enough for a large enough group of people to sustain the development of the product. Right? So it's like I come up with an idea, and it's like, okay, it's going to cost X amount in order to build this thing. Well, I need to make sure that this product is useful to Y amount of people so that I can pay the X amount it's going to cost me to build it and maintain it. So I think that's a big part of it. Is like you have to consider you have to consider these, like, weighing of, like, is it a small thing that is kind of useful and kind of cool? And in those cases, you should build it anyway, just because it helps you to learn. Like, I'm a very good engineer now and a better product person now because I've built a lot of things that did not work. And I learned a lot of lessons by doing that. And then over time, you get a lot better at it.
Absolutely, and with the tech field, it's a question of looking forward, not backwards, because technology advances very fast, and if you focus on creating what is not necessarily needed in the market, you may be solving a problem of yesterday, whereas we are looking into the future, and that kind of shapes the narrative around the question of developing products that do not work or that people don't need. Is that Have you found yourself in such a situation before?
Yeah, so I would split it in two parts. There is a lot of the technology that makes a lot of money, that is very successful, that everyone uses, is not very forward thinking. Because taking a big leap on the future, 9 times out of 10, you are going to fail because you don't know what's going to happen, right? I can make an assumption about, like we make assumptions about what the future of the content industry is going to be like. It's like, okay, people are making TikToks right now. But then, like, maybe I think people will switch to something else a year or two from now. So I could start building products based on that hypothesis that people are going to switch to doing something else in 2 or 3 years. And maybe I have some data that shows that this thing is growing, but I could be completely wrong. And I could waste, a lot of development resources in trying to do that because of what I see in the future. So I think a lot of times what you really want to do is like you don't want to build for the future as much as you want to build in a nimble way where it's like I will solve the kind of most generalized version of this problem, uh, but make sure that we can move in different directions. And I think we've done that very well at StreamYard, where the company was kind of built around live streaming, which is a very narrow part of the content creation industry. But if you kind of look at what it takes to build a live streaming product, that translates into all types of video. Where like maybe you want to live stream, maybe you want to record, maybe you want to record something for a long time, maybe you want to record something for 60 seconds, maybe you don't want to show your camera at all, maybe you just want to show slides, whatever it is. Like maybe you don't, maybe you want to live stream something else. Like the platform allows itself to be kind of molded and moved. So I think that's kind of the better move. And even in like your personal life, like if you're looking to break into technology, like don't necessarily try to think like, oh, I'm going to pick to learn this one technology because I think this is the technology that there's going to be a lot of jobs for in 2 years or whatever. I don't think that's a very good move. I think you should just pick something and just kind of go the distance, but be nimble and be willing to switch when the time comes.
Thank you. That answers the question and and takes away the mystery around always thinking about solving problems that do not yet exist, because we definitely put ourselves in more trouble about that. Let's look at breaking into tech. You've spoken a little bit about this. Breaking into tech from economics sounded to you like something not very difficult because of your experience, maybe your training, maybe your education. But our audience is an audience that is not very tech savvy. Mm-hmm. And when I read around, I see people who want to break into tech. The first thing is, how do they break into tech? You definitely didn't go to school for this. I don't know. You're going to clarify about that. You didn't go to school for this. You already went to school for something else. They who are there who want to break into tech, what should they do and at what cost?
Right. So what I found is that what I kind of discovered at the time, and this is why I have this belief that no matter what it is you want to do, no matter what your dream may be, it's completely possible. Like everything on the table is possible. The only question is kind of how far you want to go. Like how much work are you willing to put into it and for how long? It's kind of the two kind of main things. But in terms of like breaking into tech, for instance, I realized that all I really needed to do was be able to prove myself. And I think that's really all it is kind of for any industry. If you want to break into technology, you don't need like 4 years of school studying software engineering or studying computer science or some other form of engineering, because like employers, they don't care. Like they're not interested. They don't care about what you studied because they're not your friend. It's a business transaction. You're being hired to solve a problem. A business has a problem, and they need someone to solve that problem for them. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for people who can solve a problem. And they're most likely to hire people who have proved that they have already solved that problem before. Like if you have already solved this problem for this particular problem in another case, for another business, let's say, then problem solved. Like they'll hire you immediately. Or you proved that you are capable of solving that problem. So what I did was I was like, okay, I am going to look at the time, what I did was I just built a portfolio of sites that I thought were kind of interesting. I was like, they need to look good, because if someone looks at it and looks at my portfolio, they need to be like, wow, that looks really nice. and it needs to have some sort of technical difficulty where it's like, okay, yeah, I could build something that looks nice, and I could build something that's kind of challenging and solves a problem. And that's really all you needed to do. And you can do that in a couple months. Like, pick 2 or 3 websites that you like, and a kind of software product that you like, and just build a very rudimentary version of it, and then just start putting yourself out there. And that's kind of
What about
all you need
somebody
to
who
do.
doesn't know anything about software and he wants to get into this? Should such a person start from?
If you're starting from scratch like I did, the easiest thing to start with is to start with some sort of like full stack JavaScript, really web-based product. So, like, I mean, at the time, I didn't actually start with JavaScript because JavaScript was a lot worse than it is right now. I started with Ruby, a platform called Ruby on Rails, which at the time was like very popular. It was like 12 years ago. It's still very popular. There are many people that still use it. I shouldn't disparage it, but it was like super easy to learn. It was like that was like the creator of the programming language designed it to be very easy to learn. So that was really my focus. Like, there were a lot of people who were like using Python or using PHP because WordPress was really big at the time. And I had like looked at PHP and I was like, this is very confusing. There's a lot of dollar signs everywhere. I don't really understand what all these symbols are. But I looked at Ruby and I was like, this is very easy to read. I'm going to do this. So, and it didn't even matter because when I got hired for my first job, I didn't use Ruby at all. So it really doesn't make a difference. That's why I tell people, don't worry about what technology you choose to learn. Like, in terms of like your programming language and the framework that you choose, these things aren't really important, because unless you're planning to build a business yourself, you are unlikely to use what you've learned.
Yes.
You're getting hired by a company that has already chosen the programming languages they want to use. They've already chosen what frameworks they want to use. They've already chosen how they want the programming language to look, all of the style rules and all of the conventions and stuff. You're not going to be able to go in there and be like, well, this is what I know, and I want to do it like this. No, you need to learn how they do it. So I think that's kind of the thing. Just pick something that's like super easy to learn, like Ruby, or JavaScript now is very easy to learn. So I would pick like JavaScript, like pick Next.js. I think it's probably the easiest thing for most people getting started. It's a full stack framework. You can build both the like server API side and the like interface very easily. Pick like a very easy like UI library so you can easily add like buttons and forms and lists and all those types of things. And then that's it. Just come up with an idea that you think is kind of stupid, like it doesn't really matter, and then just build it. And build as many as you can.
Yeah, and the cost, and where do you get the resources for those that need free resources? Do you have any idea where they could be directed to?
Oh, never pay for anything. If you want to learn software engineering, there's no reason to spend any money at all. Use YouTube. YouTube has everything you need. Like, you don't need Coursera or Udemy or all of the other like subscription services. Go on YouTube. There are hundreds of hours, of thousands, millions of hours of free software learning. So just go on there. There are many like what I would suggest, like usually if I want to learn something brand new, is I will choose the thing that I want to learn. Like recently I want to get into like building mobile apps. So I just went onto YouTube and I found 2 videos. One was building a clone of Airbnb, and it's like 3 hours long or 4 hours long. And then I found another one that was like 2 hours long, and it was like more advanced concepts. So it was like 5-6 hours altogether, these 2 videos. And then that was it. And then you just watch the video, you build what they build in the video. And then at the end of it, that's kind of all there is. All there is to it. Like, I'm not going to be an expert at Swift at the end of this, but I'm going to know enough to kind of build rudimentary kind of things that I want to know how to do, and that's it. Like, I don't think I've paid for a single educational thing in. I think college was the last time I spent money to learn anything. Once YouTube was invented, I have not spent a single penny on learning anything.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what I'm hearing from this is pick whatever you want to learn, believe in yourself, solve problems, ensure that you can solve problems, put yourself out there, and you would make it out in life. Is that a summary of what you've just said?
Yeah. If I'll add one extra thing, which is I had tried. It took me longer than it should have when I first started. It took me like an extra year than it should have taken me, and the reason was because I spent a year trying to do it by myself. And I think everyone is different. There are many people who have different types of personalities. But I think for the most part, humans are social creatures. They like doing things with other people. And they're I think more importantly, they're more motivated to do something when someone else is depending on them. So the thing that really accelerated my progress in the beginning was working with other people. I found a group of people who also were learning how to do engineering. So we just all learned together, and we built projects together, and we did it every day. Every single day, we would work together and build projects and learn. And for that reason, at the end of 4 months of working together, we all ended up with jobs. We all had portfolios. We all had jobs. We all had, experience of working on a team. And we had a lot of fun, and we made a lot of friends. So I think that's the one thing I would add is, like, if you're going to pick something, the internet is there. Like, try to go on Reddit or Discord, whatever you need to do, find a community of other people who also are trying to learn what you're learning, and try to learn together and work with other people during that learning process. It'll definitely help you out.
I really hope the audience is listening and hearing that you need a network of people to work with. And that if Charles is giving all this advice, it means that Charles can point you to something, and he listens, he's open, he likes to talk, he likes to share. I leave it at that. Yeah, like, Charles, let's talk about StreamYard. For those who don't know, StreamYard is the platform we're using to stream this recording. I've been using other platforms in the past, but I saw this platform and I got into it and I started using it. For disclosure, this is not an advert. There is no paid promotion about this. Then as I was working on the platform, I received an email from Charles to talk to me to learn how I'm using it, if I have any ideas for improvements, I have any complaints, or what I'm so happy with. We had this conversation and it morphed into something else. And today I am receiving Charles here. He's talking to us. He's sharing his experiences. We are all learning. But one thing we'd like to know from Charles is, what is StreamYard? How did it come about? And is it accessible to, Charles, my interest is Africa. We have a lot of people who would like to create content from the continent. The internet is weak, it's expensive, and they would want a platform with lower bandwidth, but with high image quality, So they would like to know from you how the platform works, and if it's possible to have it on the continent, maybe with some discounts, and, tell us more about StreamYard.
Yeah, absolutely. So StreamYard came about, God, I guess it's like 5 years ago. Now I lose track of time, but yeah, it started about 2 years before the pandemic. So yes, I guess about 5 years ago now. It came out of like a different business that was very similar. I would think it was kind of, if anyone knows like a thing called Clubhouse, is kind of like that, but for video. But basically, the whole concept was there are a lot of these types of products out there. Well, there weren't a lot of them. Like maybe there were about 3 when they first started, but they were very difficult to use, and they were targeted towards professionals because there wasn't this like large live streaming content creation market of people doing it. So it was really like building video products that were for professional people. They were very challenging to use, and you couldn't use them across products. Like that was one of the big things, was like you would have to download a piece of software onto your computer. Your computer would have to have certain requirements. Like you couldn't, there was no mobile version, so you couldn't use it on your phone. So that was really the concept, was like, okay, well, what if you built a live streaming video product that could be used in the browser? So anyone who has a computer that has a browser where you can access the internet, you could use this product, and you could use it on your phone. It's super easy to use. Like anyone can get started. Like our onboarding process is super easy. Jumping into the studio is super easy. You just enter the product, press create, you're in the studio, you press go live, and you're done. Like 2-3 clicks and you're creating content. That's really the goal, is make it as simple for everyone as possible. And then the third part is what you mentioned. Like it's relatively straightforward to kind of build a product that's available across devices, but how high quality is it going to be? So that was a very big focus, is like, okay, if we're going to do this, it needs to be very high quality. And you need to, in order to do that, kind of like you said, depending on like where you are in the world, you can't do it kind of on device. Maybe people don't have like the state of the art devices, so you can't do all of that video creation and post processing and pre-processing on device. So okay, we need to like build very good services kind of on our end to handle that for folks. And that's really been the focus. So StreamYard is the easiest product to use if you just want to get started content creating. And once you get started, we have a lot of other features to help you kind of in your content creation career, more features to make more dynamic video. And then we're building a lot kind of around that with like our library and editing and publishing. And, you know, like I said, collab if you want to work with other people. If you like don't have trouble kind of going on the camera yourself, you could find other people who you would want to have on your show, like we're doing now. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. And you know, I used to produce content, and I'll take a longer time to edit, repurpose it before I make it public. But with StreamYard, I get in there and I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I hit the jingle, hit record, and live stream, and that's it. And I'm gone. And we have this beautiful output. Yeah. And so at StreamYard, how is your day to day? I know we're going back to your work, breaking into tech. How is your day to day life at StreamYard? I know you work in the back end. You're a tech guy. You generally don't get to meet people. You're not a marketer. You're not a salesperson. But how is your day to day life?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time talking to people now.
Oh,
like
fantastic.
when I first started, I was more on the software engineering side, but that we're also a very small team, and we're still relatively small team building the entire product. But I spend a lot of time talking with people now because I'm much more on the product side. I would say my day is kind of split, where I spend like 50% of my day on like product side, so thinking about what we're building, measuring the impact of what we've already built and talking to users. And then the other part of it is engineering. So like trying to figure out how we're actually going to build the things that we've decided we're going to build, and you know, fixing issues and all of that type of stuff. So my day is pretty split evenly.
Oh, that sounds interesting, because anyway, I met you. You were talking to me. That's how I got to meet you. Let's switch gears a little bit and look at tech startups, it looks like StreamYard itself could be considered a startup. I don't know what you would say, but the tech startups, how is the market and how are they growing? Is it something people need to work in clusters to build startups? Can companies abroad work with companies maybe in the United States, collaborate with StreamYard to grow? But before you get to that, just to say that StreamYard has grown, and I was interviewing somebody last time, and the person told me that an international media station was interviewing him on StreamYard. So that is, you guys are doing some fantastic work out there. Full disclosure again, this is not a paid promotion. I am not doing any promotion for StreamYard, but I'm just attesting to the work that Charles has been doing all along. Yeah, talk about this, Charles, about the startups.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, like a lot of people are using StreamYard now. It is pretty nuts. Like when we see the organizations that use it, like Microsoft uses StreamYard for all of their live streaming. Disney uses it. Like a lot of people all over the place use it. For startups, I would still consider StreamYard a startup. I mean, like the word startup has so many different definitions. I think for the most part, you could consider something a startup on how much growth it has left before it kind of like reaches kind of as far as it can go. You know, like Amazon, it was a startup for like 20 years, really, until it kind of reached saturation. And at this point, everyone in the world knows what Amazon is. They've kind of reached kind of the top of their markets of kind of how many users they can have. They can still grow, but it's like it's not going to be like 20% year over year growth. It'll be more like 2 to 3% year over year growth, that sort of thing. So for startups, you can build a startup anywhere. Like as long as you have access to the internet, you can build a technology company of any sort. And you can work with anyone around the world. There is no limit. I think the only limit is what time of day you want to be awake. I think it's the only limiting factor is like if I want to work with someone in Australia, I could. It would be challenging if we have to like talk a lot because I would be waking up at like 3 a.m. or something. But yeah, like building technology companies, super easy. It couldn't be any easier. Like you build, like I said, like if you pick something like Next.js, you could come up with an idea. It'll take you like a couple days to build it. Like I know plenty of people who what they do is they build products like from scratch. They'll come up with an idea, they'll build it. It takes them like 2 to 3 days to kind of build it, and then they'll sell it to someone else. It would be like, okay, I built this thing. I was able to get like, a little bit of users, 10 to 100 users. I've kind of proved that there are people who actually want this thing. And then you just sell it to somebody else for a couple $1,000s or whatever. And then you move on to something else. And they're doing that internationally. Like they are not all in one place. They kind of go around and they use the internet to kind of find other people. So, yeah.
Yeah, there is this concept of tech incubators where tech startups in Africa group themselves to work together, build amongst them that network that can achieve some significant progress. I was just wondering if that is something that you and StreamYard or some other collaborators could really love to get in touch with these other tech companies in Africa.
Right.
Maybe they are not working on the same products, but it's all about engineering. Yeah, to see how you could hold their hands and move them forward. Just something like that, creating this connection across borders because it's easy with the internet today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say two things. So one is that incubators are really great depending on what you're building. Like they're especially incubators that are quite focused on a particular thing. Like they're great. I can't remember the name of it. It'll probably come to me at some point. But there was a great tech incubator in New York that was all they did was it was like social local apps. So like technology that was around company like it was incubator for companies that wanted to do something with like mapping, like location based things. those so that it was great because like if it was like me and another person and we wanted to start a company, it was fantastic because you are working around 100 other people who are solving very similar problems to you. So maybe your idea doesn't work out, but now you have loads of connections in this space and you can kind of work with other people. And your odds of success are a lot higher because you're learning from other people and you're building connections. So that's kind of really the main thing that you want to focus on. What can I learn? How valuable is this connection that I'm making? In terms of working with other people, like I'm a very open person. Like you said, I love to talk. If anyone wants advice about how to like get started or they're already started, they're building something and they want advice, my door is always open or my camera is always open if someone wants to talk. Everyone at StreamYard is exactly the same. Like that's one reason why I love working with this team. We're all very open. We all love to help people. And you'll find that across most companies. Like building a tech company is easy in terms of like it doesn't take a lot of resources. You can just kind of get started, but it is hard in the sense that there are a lot of roadblocks that you're going to hit and like really annoying problems that you're going to have to solve for. Anyone who has ever dealt with those issues doesn't want other people to have to deal with those issues. Like I already went through the pain. I don't want other people to deal with the pain.
Absolutely.
So just I will tell you all of the things that you should avoid, no matter what it is that you're working on. So I think that's kind of the thing. Like if someone wants to reach out to me, I'm around. If you see someone on who works at StreamYard, like we're all kind of very open people. And if there's a company that you like so a company that you admire, just reach out. Just reach out to people. You'll always be amazed at how friendly and open people are.
Audience, you get that? That is Charles talking. Charles, we're so happy to have you here today. Let's we've spoken about the good sides of tech. We've spoken about everything. Now, I have two areas I'd like us to look at. The one area is the impact of technology as it is, where we are with technology, where we are going to, particularly for low economies, weak economies like African economies, and then on the other side, the challenges of technology. I don't want us to paint a picture as if there are no challenges or there are no difficulties. There are, but
Yeah.
we, as human beings, we need to challenge our challenges, right? So, on the aspect of the importance of technology in weak economies, how can technology actually help improve or bring about development? And should governments and individuals and private businesses be gunning so hard to bring technology back to the continent?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely 100%. I think something that has hamstrung a lot of economies, especially developing economies, is that the dominance of largely manufacturing companies, like very large multinational companies that needed like physical goods to be manufactured, they pushed very hard into a lot of developing countries, and those countries kind of built around those industries. You see this a lot in like India with the fashion industry and Bangladesh and that type of thing. And then in South America, there's a lot of farming and like industries that kind of went around that. But those industries, those local industries, are dependent on the kind of multinational company to do something, to kind of have that business there. If they pulled out, it would be very difficult for many people. And I think technology is a big solution to this problem. A lot of technology companies, I think we've seen that like they're very successful, but they've kind of many of them have reached a point of ubiquity that has decreased their effectiveness. Like Google is a very powerful product, but it's kind of so ubiquitous and so general that that it's kind of it. There are elements of it that's kind of useless, and you've kind of seen that with things like Chat GPT, where it's like here's this new way of like solving a problem, and people have kind of run to it. So for developing countries, I think the big solution is going to be developing homegrown solutions and using those solutions instead of using the solutions that other people have built. I mean, if you look at it in China, their technology industry has done very well because the people in China use Chinese technology, right? Like we all use TikTok, but they don't use TikTok. They use a different version of the same application, right? But they built TikTok. They didn't just use Instagram or they didn't just use Facebook. They were like, no, we're going to build our own social network, our own products that are tailored to the way we like things because there are individual cultural values. And those products ended up taking off, which was very good for everyone living in that country. And it's also good for the rest of the world because now the rest of the world has a brand new product that they wouldn't have had otherwise, you know, and it's expanded with things like Timu, etc. So I think it's very important for developing countries to go full on technology, find areas of technology that are very important, and build some homegrown solutions, kind of with homegrown values. Um, Let that kind of nurture and build local economies, and then push out globally, and then have even more growth.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting to me. I spent some time in China and we did not have access to YouTube. We didn't have access to Facebook, TikTok. And this has developed the Chinese tech space and has actually developed China, the Chinese human resources that are developing the tech industry. And what I find in most African countries is we tend to open up and receive all the foreign technology. So the dominant technology comes in and home-based technology does not grow.
Yeah.
Um, that again comes to what we're talking about earlier on. Businesses should solve problems. They should be targeted at solving problems. And Western or foreign technology may not necessarily solve the problems that we have at home because we are adapting a technology that was built without a notion of the contextual, sociological, cultural problems that we face. You know, so we adapt, we copy, we paste, but the pasting may not necessarily suit the context. So it's an important decision for governments in Africa now to start funding African companies, African tech companies, because the solutions to our problems can actually come from us. As Charles is saying, it doesn't take too many resources to develop a tech company. So it's necessary we look back and see where we can support home companies to develop what they need to develop. Charles, thank you for that. Let's look at the challenges in the tech space. Maybe we start from, I don't know where I want to start from, but I would like us to look at challenges from government, maybe regulation, maybe financing, maybe knowledge base, maybe resources. I don't know where I want to start from, but
Right.
give us an idea of these challenges that we face in the tech space.
Right. So there are a couple of headwinds, I think, at the moment for technology. I mean, coming out of kind of the pandemic era, there was a big kind of spark, and you see this kind of with any time there's something that is kind of very big and burgeoning, and then things kind of trail off after a while. And I think there was during the pandemic, there was, and a little bit before that as well, I'd say probably starting like 2018 and that kind of era and onwards, there was a lot of people investing in technology. You know, there were a lot of people with money and they wanted to fund technology. And a big reason for that is macroeconomic reasoning. Like you weren't going to get a lot of return for your money as an investor in the public markets. There weren't a lot of other places to kind of put money. Real estate, we kind of went through those phases of like that people were still kind of touchy on that. So there was a lot of money being funneled into technology. So on the financing space, it has become more challenging to raise money to start a technology company. But along with that, though it's become more challenging to raise money, it's become a lot easier to build something without a lot of money. Like you can build things now in a way that you wouldn't have been able to 5, 6 years ago without a significant amount of money. And social media is a big part of that. Like I suggest to a lot of people, like if you're going to start a technology company, let's say, and it's depending on what it is, of course, but I think in a lot of cases, you should start using social media in some way or start putting yourself out there, like this. Like maybe you don't want to have your own Instagram page and your own YouTube channel, but you should start going on podcasts. You should start talking to other people and getting yourself out there. And then you don't need a lot of money. The majority of what you spend money on when you're starting a company is advertising, people to know you exist and to give you a shot. So that's a challenge on the finance side. On the government and regulation side, I mean, there's a lot of talk about regulation. You do hear a lot. It is in the conversation a lot, but a lot of that regulation is really aimed at large companies. So I would say for the most part, I don't think people should really concern themselves too much. There are certain industries, of course, that have a lot more regulation issues. Like if you want to do something in finance, or if you want to do something in a kind of a hard industry, something that's like technology but physical, something like building rockets or like something that something that could have large external consequences, then you probably have to worry about regulation. Otherwise, it's not really that important. I just see it as being really for discussions about what large companies are doing. Other challenges that we're facing in technology, I think one challenge is it's become a lot more difficult for this is for larger companies. It kind of depends on kind of where you are. But like there are a lot of companies, like we'll see like a lot of companies are laying people off. There's a lot of firings, like downsizing of companies. That's a kind of big thing right now. But that's kind of a normal cycle thing. There's still a lot of demand for there's a demand for smaller services. It's kind of what we were talking about before. If you have a very large company and they're very generalized and very ubiquitous, at some point they don't need so many people and they will just start laying people off. And because they're so large, they can lay off thousands of people and it doesn't really affect them. But there is still need. There are still problems out there that need to be solved. And those people will either start businesses themselves or they will go on to work for smaller companies that have other problems that are solving other types of problems. So that's kind of where I see things for the most part.
Thank you, Charles. On the advertisement part, that is the biggest challenge, especially when you are a small company, as you rightly said. When you get these resources or these products, you need people to consume them for you to make money out of it. And you need to do the advert. One of the reasons we put this program together is to spot the light on Africans who are doing something significant, something tremendous. We give out the word. We shine the word and we create a context where you bring what you have and share with others for people to hear and learn about it. We are not running any adverts. We're not taking any money from any person, but we've invested the money to create the platform for people to come and talk about what they have and what they're offering to the world. We are interested in hearing people who are especially in tech, in education, especially tech and education, health, to talk about what they have, how they are helping people, what they have learned, whom they have met that can help others. I met somebody, Charles. He's here. He's talking to us about other people. So if you've met somebody who can talk to some other people about something, let us know. Drop a comment, leave a comment, and we'll definitely get back to you. We are really reactive. My team and I, we are reactive. We're going to get back to you. And if you need to get to some other person, we'll definitely put you in contact with that person in as much as the person is ready to listen to you and to talk to you. And we know people who come on this platform are people who want to share, they want to help, they're not stingy with knowledge, and they are ready to help us move forward. And if you're trying to do something new, don't be afraid because you heard in the news that that companies are laying off. No, they are laying off, yes, but if you do it and become the best of it, if you become the master of the art, nobody's going to lay you off. You are going to be there, other people are going to be laid off. Even if you are laid off, you are the master of the art. You would find something else, and you will definitely be building yours. So it's necessary to build yourself, talk to people, talk to us, expose yourself, and definitely people would see you, and there will be so much progress on our continent. Our focus is building the continent of Africa, making value out of what we have. Many people consider travel out of Africa as a brain drain, but we consider it here as a brain gain, because when you travel out of Africa, you know different people, you learn different things, you gain different knowledge, you gain resources, you develop a huge network of expertise and other people who can work with you to do something. And if you gather all this and put them in one pot, you can go back to the continent to invest and help the continent develop. And this is what we are trying to put here, right? If you know somebody who has developed some skills and that person is interested in sharing them with Africa, with Africans, then the person come here and we talk about it, and people are definitely going to learn about what is happening. I don't know if you have something to add about this, Charles.
No, I think it's incredibly important, like for platforms like yours to exist, to kind of shed a light on people whose stories are maybe not being told, or it's kind of very difficult for them to get on these kind of larger platforms where there's already a lot of demand for people to get on there. I think it's very important for people to hear the stories about other people that are kind of in a very similar position to them, or have been in a very similar position to them, and have accomplished something. You know, those people have a lot of knowledge that you can gain from, and that you can use in whatever you're doing, and always contribute back to your community. Like, I think is extremely important. Yeah, my family, we grew up in a developing country, went to the United States, kind of built a life for ourselves, but you know, we still have a lot of family there, and we still give back to our community there. And I think it's extremely important, because if we don't, you know, we're kind of leaving people behind. But it was very important for us to come here in the first place so that we can gain the knowledge and experience and have that value to kind of invest back. And people now are in a much better position than we were in, you know, many years ago. So yeah, I think what you're doing is very important, and I'm happy that you're doing it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And that is what Beyond Africa is all about. Let's be rounding down. And there's a lot of talk about emerging technologies, new technologies, AI, blockchain, machine learning. How do you see this having an impact? How is this going to impact the world in the next few years?
Right. I think for each of those, they all have a space where they are important. Blockchain has had its kind of ups and downs, like all the kind of Web3 technology things, decentralized technologies. I think there's definitely a space for it, and there was definitely a lot of interest, but that interest has kind of died off. I wouldn't say it's not going to have an impact long term. I think long term it will have an impact, but we're still kind of working it out. It's the same thing with kind of building any product. When you start your business, you think your business will be X, but it's probably going to be Y, and you just have to be nimble and it may take a while. You start a company and it's going to take you a bit to kind of get to where you want it to be. For everything else, machine learning has been extremely important for every business for a very long time. I always find it very interesting that it's kind of only recently that people really talk about it. I mean, if you used YouTube when it first started, or you used Netflix when it first started, or pretty much anything else, machine learning has kind of always been there. But it is becoming more and more of a thing, mostly because there's more and more information, right? Like if you don't need machine learning if me and you have a text chat. Like if me and you start a WhatsApp and we're just texting back and forth, we don't really need machine learning to digest our chat. But once you get 100 people in the room and you want to understand what everyone's talking about and you need like a summary, then you need to introduce machine learning. So like a lot of it is because there's just a lot of information. Like I said, I worked in finance before technology, and machine learning is extremely important across every level of finance. Without it, we wouldn't have modern finance at all. So I think it will continue to get more and more important. And luckily, there's a lot of ML tools that are becoming more accessible. I think machine learning was very difficult. It was really reserved for very large companies that had very large computers and a lot of money and a lot of engineers to kind of monitor it. But now it's becoming a lot easier for a normal person to use machine learning for themselves, as a consumer, to use machine learning. Like I've seen some really cool tools where you could like get an idea of how machine learning works on your like kind of local computer. If you have a set of text documents or PDFs or something and you want to learn machine learning, you can do that kind of for yourself. So I think machine learning will continue to expand as it always has and kind of find new ways of being used. In AI, it's very odd because like AI is a kind of blanket term, I think, for a lot of different technologies. The biggest space I see AI having an impact is in productivity. I think there's a lot of talk and a lot of fear, understandable fear that people have in terms of AI, in terms of it taking away jobs. And I don't see that as being the case. I think there's going to be more dislocation where some companies will become so much more productive where they won't need as many employees. But that doesn't mean that those jobs have been eliminated. It just means that those jobs have been eliminated at that company. So that company is now more productive. Those people who were doing that work, they can now work on other things. And because AI is there, those people can also be more productive on the next thing that they work on. So that's kind of where I see it. I don't really see AI kind of taking jobs. I think it's just going to make people who already do certain types of work much more productive. I'm an engineer. I use AI all day long to help me write better software. The AI is not going to write the software for me. It does not know what my customers want. It does not know how to test what my customers want. It can't do all of those things, and it doesn't have the kind of mind to figure out how to do that. So I still have to use it. It's still a tool. And that's kind of where I see AI going in the next couple of years. I don't really know. Like we'll see what happens. I think even if we come up with a like generalized intelligence, I think it will be reserved for, I think the biggest, the only people that really have to worry about AI as it currently stands with the kind of direction that it's taking is Google search, because the more AI becomes more generalized, the more I don't need to search. The more I can just ask this thing to give me the exact thing that I want, and then I don't need to go searching for it. So yeah.
Yeah, what can you tell me about StreamYard? And then it tells you, the search engines are suffering now. So, Charles, the more you talk, the more I want this conversation to continue. but I'm conscious of your time, and it's 1 hour already. We've been talking for an hour, but it looks like it's just been 10 minutes. Thank you so much for coming. And
My pleasure.
we look forward to talking more. You've touched, especially the last part of the conversation, on the different types of technology. I would like to have more conversation on that and see what it can contribute, how it can contribute to the development of Africa. I would like to talk about that, but this is already an hour-long conversation, and thank you so much for coming. I'm sure the audience is super excited to listen to you and learn from your experiences. If you have any last word, I'll be happy if you can share that now.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being here. And like I said, my camera is always open. If anyone ever wants to get in touch, I'll give you my details. You can post it to your community, and yeah, I'm always around. I'm always around to chat to folks who need help or just want to chat about technology in general. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much, Charles. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for following this insightful conversation. We've heard from Charles about technology, how technology can influence the world, how you can break into technology, and more importantly, why it is necessary to get in touch with Charles. He is such a positive energy to be around, and he's a lovely person. Stay tuned, share this conversation with your friends, with your schoolmates, and let them leave comments. Engage with the conversation, because this platform is aimed at helping share information that is valuable for Africans, African youth, and policymakers, so that we can contribute in changing the continent and bringing more development to the continent. Thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.